And we're back. All right. So what we'll do now, we'll move right into the NC State program. Thank you, first off, to everyone in the room. Thank you for being here. It's indeed an honor and a privilege to be beside you and be able to walk with you as we continue to reduce crime or help reduce crime in the city of Kinston, Lenore County. So thank you so very much. Give yourselves a round of applause for being here. All right, thank you. So I'm going to be obedient and move right down the program because time is of the essence and we don't want to hold anybody up from getting where they need to be. So next up, what we'll have is I'm going to introduce our newly hired Director of Office of Violence Prevention that was created by Governor Cooper out of Governor Cooper's office. His name is Mr. Gerard Tate. He is an Iraq veteran who worked in law enforcement with the U.S. Army for a decade before earning a doctorate degree in social work from the University of Southern California. He most recently served as Director of Community Impact and Engagement for a technology firm called SoundThinking, where he was responsible for advising law enforcement and community violence intervention leaders while using gunshot locator technology, ShotSpotter, to advance data-informed violence prevention and community policing strategies. Gerard Tate previously held roles in citywide violence prevention and community policing programs in California, Georgia, Missouri, and Washington, D.C. After leaving the military, he completed a U.S. Department of Homeland Security transition assignment in criminal intelligence IT systems with the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation. He is the first director of the Office of Violence Prevention, which was created by Governor Cooper in March to help state reduce violence and firearm misuse. So let's give him a round of applause, Gerard Tate.
Always got to adjust this. Remember to put it back down. Thank you, Mayor. First, I want to say good morning. I want to thank Governor Cooper for even having a vision to create this office. I'm here to speak briefly, which is often hard for me, so I'll just say our office is responsible for making sure that we can bring the best available evidence and resources to local and county violence prevention and youth violence intervention programs and services. And so you are not doing it alone. It should be led at the community level for sure, those who are closest to the issue, closest to the solution. But we want to make sure where there are other programs around the state, other programs around the nation that have been shown to work, that we make sure that we impart that information on to you, as well as a lot of listening to what your gaps in services may be and connecting with some of your local and state resources and bringing international and national technical assistance partners to help you really at the ground level. So you'll be seeing me a lot around at some of your meetings and task force meetings and other things, just listening first. I'm not here to say I have all the solutions, but I'm really, really good as a master and doctoral level social worker and a therapist at listening to what your issue may be and knowing who the right people may be to bring to help you with that particular problem. So thank you for having me. Next up will be your police chief, Chief Goyette. Thank you.
All right, thank you, everyone. I will be extremely brief. I would like for the members of the Kinston Police Department's VCAT unit to come up here really quick. What I've been asked to do is speak about this unit right here. I do have several members not here. I've got one at a funeral and two are at training. But we have our ATF TFO, John Delaney here, Detective Jones, Detective Williams, Detective Gray, and Major Turner standing in for Captain Ord. For those that may not be aware, this past August at the North Carolina Gang Investigators Association, the Kinston Police Department was awarded the Gang Unit of the Year. So basically, you're looking at 500 law enforcement agencies throughout the state of North Carolina, and we were the one that was picked for the award. We put this team together in December of 2022. This is a really, really new unit. So what they've been able to accomplish just in that short 8 to 9 month span has been remarkable, really quick. Within that time, our murder reduction has been 75%, our gang shootings are down 75%, and our weapon seizures are up 58%. That's illegal weapons off the city of Kinston. So this team, along with our investigations unit, along with our patrol unit, has done an outstanding job, and I couldn't be happier for what they've done, and I look forward to continuing the progressiveness that our agency is doing. So, thank you so much, guys. I do want to recognize a few people really quick, and that's the city manager here in Kinston, Ms. Rhonda Barwick, and also our chief partner, the Lenore County Sheriff's Office, who's here today, and Sheriff Jackie Rogers. He's my chief partner here to help reduce crime in Kinston, Lenore County. So thank you so much. And I'm going to pass the torch now to our Department of Public Safety Deputy Secretary, Mr. William Lassiter.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. And thank you so much for being here today. We're really excited to talk to you about NC Safe, which is Secure All Firearms Effectively. It's a new campaign that we have started across the state of North Carolina to really try to emphasize the point of trying to get all gun owners to lock up their firearms in their homes and in their vehicles. And we're really excited about the campaign because we think this is a message that needs to get out there. We've done research that has shown that about 42% of all households in the state of North Carolina own firearms. And of those 42% of households, 52% of those households do not secure those firearms in their homes. They leave that firearm loaded and not secured in a safe or in a gun lock. And so what we want to do is try to reduce that number of people that are doing that. The reason we want to do that is because I'm over juvenile justice. And what we've seen in the last 4 years is that the number of kids that are possessing firearms when they commit crimes has grown tremendously. We went from about 4% of the population having a firearm-related charge when they were charged as a juvenile in the state of North Carolina to last year over 13%. To put that in raw numbers for you, that went from 1,500 incidents of juveniles possessing firearms to 4,500 incidents of juveniles possessing firearms when they were committing crimes. The reason that those kids are getting the access to those firearms are two things. One, they're taking them from their parents. The parent that tells that kid that don't touch that gun, what we find is those kids still touch those guns. And so we need to make sure that those people lock up those firearms in their homes and make sure they don't get access to those kids. And the other place they're getting them from are vehicles. They're stealing them from cars. The chief just talked about your numbers are actually coming down, and I appreciate the work that the chief is doing to reduce that. Those illegal guns that he's bringing off the streets, the best thing would be for those illegal guns not to end up on the streets to begin with. And the way that we do that is make sure that responsible gun owners don't let those guns get into the hands of young people or people that should not possess them. And so I'm really excited about the campaign and excited that you are here today to hear a little bit about it. I want to introduce my boss, the guy that helped us fund this campaign, Governor Roy Cooper. He, a couple of weeks before the budget was passed last year, we were talking about this issue, and I was presenting those numbers to him, and he said, we got to do something about this. We got to figure out how do we reduce access to firearms among our young people. There are steps that we can take in the state of North Carolina without legislative action, and this is one of those steps that we have worked on to really push that. But we did get a bipartisan bill that also pushed this campaign moving forward. And so I want to thank the governor for his leadership on this. If you don't know, the governor has a great pedigree of working on issues of safety among our school children. He was the first one in the country to really roll out the crisis response kits, and we did rapid deployment training along with that. If you saw the incident that happened earlier this week at UNC, the reason that response was so programmed and done correctly by law enforcement and the emergency responders on that campus is because we have trained and practiced. That training and practice started over 23 years ago when we started to roll out rapid deployment training across the state of North Carolina. And that the governor was the one that helped to put that training in place in the state of North Carolina when he was Attorney General. And so I just want to thank him for his leadership, not only on this issue of NC Safe, but on all safety issues that have made our communities across the state of North Carolina safer. Governor?
Thank you very much for that kind welcome to be here. Thank you, Billy Lassiter, for your longtime leadership. He worked with me when I was Attorney General on these juvenile justice issues, on making our schools safer. So I'm grateful for his leadership. Chief Goyette, congratulations to you and your team for the work you're doing. Sheriff Rogers, thank you and your team for continuing to work together with folks in this community. I'm grateful that we established this Office of Violence Prevention. We want to use data-based, evidence-based methods to reduce violence in our community. Sometimes it's amazing what one or two people going into a community and bringing people together can do to reduce violence, and this Office of Violence Prevention will help us to do that. Gun violence is a public health issue. And we have with us today Dr. Betsy Tilson, who is our state health director and our chief medical officer for North Carolina. That work is so important for us to coordinate with our public health efforts to reduce gun violence. P.J. Conley, who is here with my Eastern office, he's the head of my Eastern Governor's office. So if you have any problem whatsoever, just talk to P.J. and he'll take care of it for you. We have mayors and city council members and judges and a number of local officials who've gathered here because many of you in what you do, we have folks working in juvenile justice, Department of Public Safety. What you do, you see these issues every single day. You see them on the ground. My brother's a district court judge in Rocky Mount. He sees it on the ground every day. You know, on Monday, at my alma mater in Chapel Hill, a student walked into a classroom building, shot and killed a professor. An incident like that of gun violence is horrifically commonplace in our state, in our country right now. Because of where it was and how it happened, it made a lot of headlines, but a lot of people are lying, bleeding in the streets or at home, and it never makes a headline. Here are the facts. An average of 5 people every day in North Carolina die as a result of a firearm. 5 a day. The number one cause of injury death for children in this state and country is being shot by a gun. It has surpassed car accidents in our state. And as I was going around the state gathering people together to talk about gun violence, I had an emergency room physician look at me and say, it changes your life when you're putting pressure on a bullet wound in a 4-year-old. That is wrong on many levels. Guns are involved in murders, suicides, and accidental injury and death, particularly when children get a hold of them. And we have seen a significant increase in the number of guns that have come into our communities over the last few years. Beginning during the pandemic, we saw a significant rise in that. And many of the people who went out and bought them are inexperienced when it comes to how to use guns and how to use them safely. I grew up about an hour or so from here in Nash County. I grew up in rural North Carolina. I worked on a farm every summer until I went to college. I was around guns. I have guns. Today, I believe in the Second Amendment. But I also believe that we must take strong steps to keep guns out of the hands of criminals, of children, and those who are a danger to themselves or others. Now, I know that there is disagreement probably right in this room on whether we do that, and if you think we should, how we do that. I believe local sheriff's gun permitting system was highly effective. We don't have it anymore. I believe in strong background checks. I believe in red flag laws where judges can make decisions in due process about people who are a danger to themselves or others. I believe in banning military-style assault weapons. Some of you disagree with that. But one thing we can agree on is why we are here today. Gun owners must be responsible for the guns that they own. They must work to keep them from being stolen. They must work to keep them out of the hands of young children. They must work to keep them away from people who are considering suicide. And when people are in that mental health crisis, if they can get hold of the gun, oftentimes if you can prevent that, you can prevent the suicide from happening. And they must work to keep them away from people who are a danger to themselves or others. Responsible gun ownership is patriotic. It is being a good citizen. It is looking out for your neighbors. And that's what we want to instill in people today. Every single one of these law enforcement officers are at risk when they step out the door. And the more guns that are in our community, the more at risk they are. Sheriff Rogers' deputies have to walk up and deliver a domestic violence summons or order to a house, and they don't know what's going on in that house. And it's increasing chance that somebody in that house is going to have a gun that didn't have one before, and somebody in that house is going to be mad. And these law enforcement officers put their lives on the line every day. The least we can do, I believe we can do a lot more, but the least we can do is come together as a community to educate people about how to safely store these guns. That is what NC Safe is all about. We are getting the word out. We're getting the education out. We're running television ads. Law enforcement is all in on this. Prosecutors are all in. Public health groups, prosecutors, civic groups. Everybody is coming together to make sure we get this word out in communities and to make sure that people keep your gun safe. If you own a gun and your grandchild happens to get it, and this happens too frequently, that gun goes off, how are you going to feel about it? And you may be criminally responsible for it. How are you going to feel about the fact that you forgot and left your car door open and you had your weapon on your seat and somebody stole it and murdered somebody? How are you going to feel about that? Most people don't want those things to happen. Most people are and want to be responsible gun owners. And that's what this is about today. One of the ways to do that is gun locks, personal gun vaults, things that you can do to make sure that those guns are safe in your household, and particularly when, hey, grandchildren are coming over for the we don't know a party. Those are the kinds of times, particularly when people need to be careful. So I think you're going to continue to hear this from law enforcement, and today I would love it if the sheriff and the chief would come forward. Let me say one thing, because I had it at the very first of my notes, and I just looked back and saw him. My friend, Mayor Hardy, is one of the most energetic mayors I've ever met in my life. And I want to tell you, I go all over this state, and you know, he's back here in Kinston like a flash, but he's always advocating for Kinston and Eastern North Carolina everywhere he goes. And he contacts me a lot. Just so you know, a lot. And so I want to thank him and for creating this task force and for the great work you've done. And I meant to say that at the beginning, Mayor, but I was on a roll, so I just had to come back and say that. So thank you for your leadership. But let's, you guys, if you can come forward, and we will officially present you with these. We're going to get this one right here? Okay. I'm going to let you pick that up for me in case I...
Make him bend down. There you go.
Well, you bend your knees when you do that. I didn't know. Guys, thank you for your leadership, and thank you for helping to distribute these to our communities. I think it's going to be really important. We're grateful. Stay safe out there. We're all thinking about you, and we're all praying for you. Thanks, sir. Thank you all very much.
So the lockstep the governor